Live. All right, everybody, since there's no class today, we're going to go ahead and give you a quick video via the Slack channel. My name is Joseph Contreras.
I'm Cody Estes.
And so our presentation, we're basically going to give you a quick overview of our project, the hierarchy, as well as some of the key functions we implemented. We're going to talk a little bit about how we attacked this problem. Just in brief, me and Cody basically separated this problem so that one of us is working on some of the GUI, the more interaction with the user, while the other one was working on the actual game effects. Then we brought the two together and merged them into one. We have accomplished all the tasks except for, at this point, we are missing the split screen, so we think that we will accomplish that since we already have the buffered image. So Cody will briefly go over some of the user implementation interface that he's already started.
Sweet. Yeah, so basically with our interface, I started off with mainly J-frames, pretty concrete, and it was basically the first thing I saw that was doable. So creating the J-frames, I used a lot of stuff. I explored a lot of the layouts. I feel like a good challenge was finding out how I should lay out the buttons and also the labels and the titles for the menu. Once when I was able to get hold of the layout in the right way, it became a lot easier. And clicking the buttons and basically having stuff pop up became a lot easier when I started learning about action listeners. So putting like a window listener on certain windows allows me to critique other stuff behind it rather than just stopping something and starting it up. The main challenge that Joe and I faced was that while I was working on the user interface and he was working on the gameplay was the merging. Of course, seemingly simple, it was actually really difficult considering that the path that I took was a more concrete path, which was the J-frames. The way that Joe took it was the way in order to take canvases, which are the only things that can run, basically drawings and rendering and basically redrawing and repainting everything. The J-frames can't do that. It's very concrete. You don't redraw on a J-frame. If you want to redraw it, you have to close the whole window and then open it all up again. So clashing these together, basically it was difficult. But in the end, I was able to call his canvas, call his gameplay from my menu just to create a new instance. And since everything works in Windows, I was able to go off of that. Two things that are basically about the user interface is that I have the options menu. I have player one's action keys as well as,
Let's see if I can focus this picture.
let me get it up close. So yeah, basically player one's action keys. We have basically WASD, so AWSD, and then shift to shoot, and then we also have another concrete key to shoot that we're trying to implement still. Player 2's action keys and a little thing to talk about it. We're about to implement basically changing the maps. Right here we can reset leaderboards, reset player 1's keys, and reset player 2 keys. When I close this, it goes back to the main menu. Click leaderboard. It basically opens up a leaderboard text file. If it's not there, it will create it and basically do a reset. I have fixed values, as most like arcade games do, kind of going off of that. I got all my buddies on here, little nicknames. And as the player finishes a game, it'll update the score, check out what else is there, and then basically pop out the lowest one and replace wherever it sees fit.
All right, so we'll get the lights and we'll talk real quickly about the hierarchy, and then we'll go into gameplay. Cody, do you mind holding this up?
Yeah,
So for the hierarchy, we have, like Cody said earlier, we basically have generic 2D. This is what would be the game instance. This is what takes all the other game objects. It has other objects like a handler which controls them, and it's the main engine of this game. We call it generic 2D because our goal is to move on to a three-dimensional game for the second game. We think that should be pretty easy given the way that we created this game. So we have a generic 2D that extends canvas, and as Cody said earlier, we use that because of the ability to use a buffered image. We have 3 buffered images that are constantly being redrawn and reloaded throughout the game. We have an abstract class called Game Object. Game Object then has multiple objects like a player, wall, generic missile, then it goes into homing missiles and orbital missiles. So the approach we took was having one handler, which is basically another class that doesn't extend anything. It's something we created that has linked list. This linked list has multiple layers. One layer is for wall objects because we have multiple walls in the game. It's a lot easier to skip over that linked list node and go to the other ones as far as rendering goes, so we don't have to keep rendering the walls. The handler basically is always called by our generic 2D game object. It then iterates through the handler, finds the objects that need to be re-rendered, does any calculations, and renders them again. We have a window class. The window class basically extends the J-frame, and the canvas is then loaded into that J-frame for display on PC. We also have, obviously, a key input class. The key input takes an event, passes it to any object that needs to listen to a particular event. So if there's a collision between a wall and a player, then the player would know, the wall would know, and they would then activate on that. Lastly, we have a map class. The map class has basically a large array that has integer values. These integer values, depending on their number, can be a player, a wall, etc. So now we'll hop to the game.
Sorry everyone about the technical difficulties. I know we've all experienced it with our own teachers in the past. But this is basically, we're going to demo the game for you guys, what we have. You have new game right here. Click it. Bada boom. Ayo says that. Alright. So basically you can see we have a little mini map at the bottom. It's more rectangular than it is square. We have 2 tanks. One's green and one's blue. Shoot little missiles. They actually do some homing. As you can see, as I move up, it traces me. I can shoot these little blue guys out. They're basically distraction missiles because when we actually implemented them, they were pretty
Damaging.
Yeah, pretty damaging. As you can see, if you just spawn them, when those do damage, they pretty much, it's an instant kill. So
Come closer.
add a little effect to run over the walls. As you can see, they kind of deplete as we run over them. And we shoot some homing missiles. Boom. So we made it so that you can't exactly press and hold down to shoot out the homing missiles, because that would be cheating. We can even shoot basically backwards, so it's wherever the other person is. We kind of like the old, kind of like this like retro kind of style where the tanks don't exactly move where they're going. More kind of just straightforward, kind of dual-sided, like a snowball fight.
Come close. Let's finish it off with some angles.
Oh yeah.
We really like this kind of cool orbiting effect. So these missiles are kind of just flying around us, kind of doing a circular pattern like a planet. All right, well that's a quick demo of our game. Thank you guys very much for watching, and see you when Sousa tells us.
Yeah.